Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today's topic are industry funds as low cost as they claim to be. Michael, this is your topic, or rant today more accurately, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Dallas. So I thought I would go and actually survey some of the largest industry funds in Australia, and just see what they are charging for their funds management, and state our position on what we think people should be paying in funds management. And look, our position is that we believe that people should be paying less than 0.5% of as a fee, like a percentage-based fee. They should be paying less than 0.5% for funds management inside a superannuation fund per year. Now, what 0.5% or 0.5% is, I've used a balance of $500,000. So if you're paying 0.5% on $500,000, then you'd be paying $2,500 per year in funds management. So that's for the services provided by the superannuation fund, which is administration, funds management, which I think is a homogeneous product almost.
It's a commodity.
It's a commodity.
And that's
a commoditized product.
Across the industry, that's what we've seen, is that this is the thing that has been commoditized. And, we talk about this. Obviously, as financial planners, we think that the planning is valuable, but across the board, it's sort of been shown that the administration and the funds management is basically been commoditized over the last 10 years and beyond, and that price has been driven down in a lot of cases, but not necessarily across the board, and that's sort of what you're getting at here.
That's right. So our belief is that industry funds could be cheaper.
Yes,
they could actually be cheaper. So we've looked at 8 of the largest industry funds in Australia and what they will charge. Yeah. Now, the average came out at close to 1%. Yeah. And like I said, we think you could be paying under half of that. Yep. And you should be paying under half of that. So hence the question, in the title, are industry funds as low cost as they claim to be? So,
and I think that's the claim there is the point, because what I notice, or what we have seen, is that because industry funds are not for profit or run for members, or there's all sorts of and the advertising is geared around that. And which to me is bizarre, that you can have advertising and be run as a not-for-profit. But the whole point is, a lot of these industry funds, and it's almost like the issue that we have here is people assume that I'm with an industry fund. They're not run for profit. They're run for my benefit. Therefore, they are doing a really good job, and they are charging me the least amount of money possible, and that they are helping me make all these good decisions, and that they are investing my money in the way that it should be based on my situation. There's I think, a lot of assumptions that people make when they're invested in an industry fund, where if they're invested through a retail fund, they kind of go, I know that another retail super fund provider is being run for profit, so they're doing a job the same as any other business. I need to take control of my decision of, are they best for me? Is my money being invested in the best way? Are my fees as low as they could be? I think what happens with industry funds is that they've sort of really pushed that message that, well, we're run for members, therefore everything we do must be right, and it must be low cost, and it must be the best way to be invested for each member. And so that's I think the claim there is, I don't think any industry fund has come out and said we're the lowest cost provider, but there's an implied thing where you're with us, we'll take care of you.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and certainly. Here's a little legal disclaimer here. We're not suggesting that industry funds don't take care of you.
No.
What I'm questioning is, I believe they could be on average half the price that they're actually.
Yeah.
The fee that they're charging, I think, is double what it should be.
Yeah.
Because there are other providers out there. There are super fund providers in Australia that we use and we recommend that are actually that are less than half the cost of some of these funds. So let's go through them. Now let me continue on. These industry funds are huge, so I want to put a little legal disclaimer there because I don't want to get sued. So look, there is no malice or prejudice in our calculations. So we've read the product disclosure statements of each fund as at the 21st of August 2021. So I've actually read them. Look, we're merely trying to sift through what tends to be confusing for the consumer. Fees are very, very confusing for the consumer. So we're just trying to sift through that and calculate the total fees that a consumer with a balance of $500,000 would pay in both percentage terms and dollar terms for the products listed. Which are the age-based default investment strategies of each fund. We've taken for this example, we've assumed someone's age 50 and they have a $500,000 balance. So what we're looking at is what would be the default investment strategy that these particular industry super funds would put them into, and what would the fees be for that year in percentage and dollar terms?
Can I just interrupt you there for a second, mate?
Hang on a sec.
Well, you can list
if we have misinterpreted the fees from the PDS, the product disclosure statement, we would welcome a representative of the particular industry fund to contact us immediately, at which point in time we would immediately publish a correction and alter the podcast in question. So
I thought you meant when you said you had a disclaimer, I thouut you meant you were just going to say, please don't sue us. Like just
No, I have a real disclaimer here. So we've done this in good faith. There's no malice or prejudice in our calculations. The documentation in general, and this is not a reflection of any particular fund, it's confusing. So I read some of these product disclosure statements.
Mate,
I was confused because
I just read one for another client this morning. I read it and went, I'm going to have to go and spend an hour working out how all this plays. Does this fee apply to everything or just this bit, or how does it? That's the confusing part. The consumer's got no chance.
So we've done this in good faith, just as something in the best interest of the consumer. And like I said, if any industry fund out there feels that we've omitted or misrepresented or not calculated properly, then please contact us immediately, and we'll correct the issue. And let everyone know that we've made a mistake.
So now can I? Butt
you can talk now.
The point I just wanted to make before you get into this, because you discussed the default investment strategy for your age, and so I just wanted to explain a bit about that, because this is my personal. I think your personal bugbear is these industry funds are just much dearer than they need to be. Mine is. I also agree with that. That is also a bit of a annoyance. But the thing that I find, and I'll probably have this as a separate podcast, a separate rant, is the whole concept of these default investment strategies is fundamentally flawed. So what we're using here today is just, this is what the industry fund would automatically put you in. And this is, I think, my other point is, people think that your industry fund, I'm 55 and they've invested me in the investment strategy that is the best fit. They've decided it must be what's best for me. That is not the case.
I have another podcast coming up.
Okay, fantastic.
I'll go taps into exactly that. Exactly that.
So just before we get into this, when we're looking at the cost comparison of this versus other providers, we're not for 1 second saying that you should be invested in the way that your industry fund has invested you.
No, that's absolutely not.
Issue.
And I think for the purposes of today, let's assume they're all going to return about the same.
Yes. Yep.
I said before, funds management and super funds management, I believe, is homogeneous. It's a commodity. So my take on that is that if they're all the same, and they're not the same, they've got different investment strategies, but no one on earth has the ability to stand here today and say in 5 years' time this fund will outperform that fund.
No.
No one can say that.
Well, the point is that for the fund that's saying they are going to outperform, they have to be outperforming another fund that's underperforming by that amount. So they're both standing there saying it. One of them's going to be right, one of them's going to be wrong.
Our theory our theory is that if I can get the same thing for half the price, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Because that's an extra return in my pocket.
Yeah.
Returns are affected by fees.
Yep.
So if we're investing in something that's homogeneous and one's charging us 1% and the other one's charging us half of 1%, then the one that's charging us half of 1% is the low hanging fruit that we can take, and we can say, okay, well, we can assume that we get an extra 0.5% net rate of return on that one.
And sorry, mate, I just keep interrupting you before you get into the meat of your thing here, but I just want to touch on a point as well, is that this is how we think about our own fees. So, and we've discussed this before, where we often have a meeting with a new client and say, look, you need to do X, Y, and Z. You can do it on your own, or I can do it for you. If we were to do that for you, the amount that we would have to charge you to do that, we're not going to provide more benefit than that. So, for certain people, and that's exactly the point here, is that we're aware of the fact that we have a responsibility where if we're going to charge, so if someone's not paying an advisor service fee at the moment, if they're going to pay us 1% per year to give them advice and to help them with their planning and to work with them over the next 40 years, we need to be providing more than that in value to that person. Otherwise, they're better off without us. And that's the point that I think you're making there, is that there's a separate issue of, some fund managers would imply that they're going to be a better investor, or I don't know. A lot of them don't even really have a clear thing there. But the same thing applies with all these, with any sort of a fee, is that you have to be getting more in value than what you have to be giving more in value than what you're charging as a professional. And if you're not doing that, you're doing a disservice to your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So the funds, the first one is the Q Super Accumulation Fund. So if I'm age 50 with a $500,000 balance, the default investment strategy, which means if I don't make a option to tell Q Super where I want my money invested, they'll put me into their default fund, which is the Lifetime Focus 3 fund. The fees for that particular fund on $500,000 in dollar terms total $3,150 per year, which is 0.63%, made up by an admin fee of 0.16%, an investment fee of 0.39%, and an internal cost ratio of 0.08%. So 0.63% total fees, $3,150. The second fund is the Australian Super Plan, and again with the same example, 50 years of age, $500,000 of funds. The default investment strategy is the Balance Fund. The PDS, the Product Disclosure Statement, which is the official record, tells me that the fees would be 0.72% in percentage-based fees plus $117 of admin fee, which is $2.25 per week. Those fees add up to $3,717 for the year. So an average of 0.72%, 0.72% plus the admin fee. Now that includes, which this was confusing. I found it confusing. It includes a 0.18% implicit transactional and operational costs, which it states are not included in the investment fee. So, that's the fees. For the Australian Super. The next fund is the Vic Super Future Saver, and the default strategy is the Growth Fund. They have fees that would total $4,452 on a $500,000 balance, made up of a $52 per year flat dollar admin fee, a 0.15% percentage-based admin fee, a 0.73% investment fee. So those two total up to 0.88%. So 0.88%, 0.88%, plus $52 per year takes me to $4,452 per year per $500,000 balance. The next fund is the Aware Super Fund, which I believe is formerly the New South Wales state government fund.
Jeez, they got some good names. These funds. They really rebranded it in a way more fun way than what they were before.
Absolutely. Now they have different products. The Aware Super. So the Aware Super employer sponsored personal members police blue ribbon super fund and ambulance officers fund. So they would put me into the default strategy, which is the high growth fund. It has a $52 per year admin fee plus a 0.15% admin fee, an investment fee of 0.77%. So it takes my total percentage-based fees to 0.92%. Plus the $52, it takes my total fees to $4,652. The next fund is the Sun Super for Life fund. At age 50 with $500,000, they'd put me into the balanced pool. They have a $78 per year fixed admin fee plus a 0.1% admin fee, an investment fee of 0.24%, an internal cross ratio of 0.59%, and a performance fee of 0.03%. So that adds up to 0.96% of percentage-based fees plus $78 per year. That takes my total fees to $4,878. The next fund is the CBUS Industry Super, and they would put me into the growth fund option. They have an admin fee of $104 per year fixed, plus 0.19%. The investment fee is 0.56%. Now they have a different fee here called borrowing costs and implicit transaction costs, 0.31%. That takes the total fee to just over 1%. It's 1.06% plus $104 per year. And in dollar terms, it's $5,404 per year per $500,000 invested. Got two to go. Sorry, it's taking its time.
Yeah.
The Hester Super Fund has the balanced growth as the default option. Have an admin fee of $65 fixed, plus 0.06% on a $500,000 balance as another admin fee. Investment fee of 0.72%, an internal cost ratio of 0.14%. It also has another 0.14% in implicit transactional and operational costs as well. And it effectively takes the total fee again to 1.06% and plus the $65 fixed admin fee. It takes my total fees to $5,345 per $500,000 balance per year. And the last one is the Host Plus Superannuation and Personal. So the Host Plus Superannuation and Personal Super Plan would put me into the balanced fund. It has a admin fee of $78 per year. It has an investment fee of 0.71%. It has an internal cost ratio of 0.39%. It takes my total fees to 1.1% plus $78. So it would cost me $5,578 for the year to be in the Host Plus Superannuation and Host Plus Personal Super Plan. Now, this fund is a little bit different to the others, only for the fact that I believe it features in a book.
Just about to comment on that.
So there could be quite a few listeners actually that have read. Well, and I haven't read the book. What's the book called? The Barefoot Investor.
Yeah. So there's a few thoughts I had out of those things. Now the first one is fees are confusing. Like as you're listing those, each fund has 4 different fees.
Yes.
It's half of those there's an implicit cost. Is there a cost or is it not? It's an implied cost. It almost sounds like a Seinfeld episode waiting to happen. But so my first thoughts,
fees are confusing.
They're just confusing, and this is like you say. It would have taken you a fair while to go through the PDS for each of those products and work out, okay, well, does that fee apply here or not? Or is it capped at this amount? Or is it, there's an extra fee if your balance is below that,
Yes, it did.
So number one, fees are confusing. So it's not, I think the first thing that I'd say there is if you don't know what fees your super fund is charging you, that completely makes sense. Like you shouldn't feel silly for not knowing because it's not easy to know. And a couple of other thoughts I had here were that, as you just touched on there, so with Host Plus being was basically spruiked in the Barefoot Investor book, which was interesting to me because I remember at the time thinking this is very close to personal advice, and he's just written a book. So if I wrote a book and said you should all use this fund, then I'd get strung up against the wall. But,
absolutely.
And I remember reading that, and it wasn't. What was interesting was. Now, if my memory serves me correct, now there should be a disclaimer where
Scott Pape can sue you.
He'll sue me now, but I believe I remember reading something about this recently where the actual product or the fund that he recommended. So he recommended Host Plus. It was like a balanced indexed fund was what he recommended because he said it's really cheap. It gives you and I remember reading and thinking, well, this isn't. You can't be writing a book that some 20-year-olds are going to read and some 70-year-olds are going to read and think they all need to be invested in the same way, which is what was implied there. But separately to that, he's probably recommended the fund that he might have recommended to them, and I don't know whether this is the case or not, but that fund itself could have easily been shut down by Host Plus Super now, and people get pushed across into the next default.
Well, I think the other thing too, Dallas, that's confusing is that people would read that inherently and just say, I'm just going to join Host Plus, and if they don't make an option as to being specifically invested into a particular fund, then they'll be put into the default fund, which is the balance fund.
That's right.
And the balance fund happens to be the most expensive fund that we surveyed out of those 8 at 1.1%, plus $78 per year. So it takes the total fee on $500,000 of fund balance to $5,578 per year.
Yeah. So that was, and I guess it's sort of similar to that, is that the point that we also want to make here is that it's not necessarily that, and we've touched on this many times, it's not the fund itself that is often the underlying issue. It's the investment strategy. So some of these funds, as you're listing them, we know that there are far cheap, even if you had to stay with that fund for whatever reason, there are far cheaper investment options available through those funds. Like we just talked about with Host Plus. There's literally a book written that said, here, use this really good cheap balanced fund through Host Plus. But but if you tick the wrong box, instead of it being 0.1%, it's going to be 1.1, which is a huge difference. There's all most of those other funds, as you're listing them, we know that if you went and built your own investment strategy there behind the scenes and didn't just let it go into the default option, you would be getting charged far less. Now, the bit that doesn't make sense to me about that, and this is, I think, your thing with industry funds, is they're being run for members. So there's no profit motive. Now, if you're in the default option, you would think that there's got to be some economy of scale advantage there. So if you go into the default option, that's where all the money is. That's where everyone's put their money that hasn't made a decision. Yeah. If anything, that should be cheaper.
It should be cheaper by economies of scale. You're right. By economies of scale, you should.
So why can I go to that fund if you gave me a Sun Super client with the Sun Super account? You have to use Sun Super, build the investment strategy that's right for them. I guarantee you that I could, regardless of what their investment strategy is, I guarantee I could build it for cheaper than that. So why am I able to do that? Because I have that knowledge, but because they're just going along for the ride in the default option, they're getting charged more. Again, from economies of scale, that should not be the case.
You're spot on. Like, from economies of scale, you would think that would be well. If you want to put a figure on half the cost that they are, so the average of all of those funds came to $4,647 per year. So it's 0.93% in percentage terms. look, we know of funds that are well and truly less than half than that. So let's just take half as a benchmark, though, and let's say that our position is that you shouldn't be paying any more than half of that fee, which is 0.465%. So 0.465%, which would be $2,323.50 per year, as opposed to $4,647. So given that we don't know which one of those funds over the next 15 years, and what we're going to look at is that this person who's 50 with $500,000, in 15 years they'll be 65. So over the next 15 years, we have no hope in hell of actually picking which one of those funds will outperform the others. But my guess is that they'll all be about the same. But no one on earth can stand here with assurance and say this fund will outperform that one. So if we don't know any of that, then what do we know? We know what they charge in fees. And if we could get a fund that was half that cost, 0.93%, so it wasn't 0.93% or $4,647 a year, it was instead only 0.465% or $2,323.50 per year, then what we'd actually have is a saving in fees every year, starting, because it's a compounding thing, starting this year at $2,323.50 in savings. So if we could pay half the fee instead of the full fee,
we've got more of that.
We'd save $2,323.50 per year. So our fund would grow by an extra $2,323.50 over the next 12 months. Now, again, because they're percentage based, that's a compounding thing. What would happen over 15 years is that if we were able to pick up that cost saving, then for someone that is a 50-year-old with a $500,000 superannuation balance and who has an income of $100,000, so their employer's making $10,000 per year as contributions, indexed to 3%, and they're doing nothing else. They're not even putting extra money in for superannuation.
So this is just a pure cost saving measure.
It's pure cost saving. So with that cost saving, they retire with an extra $113,801.
So that's $113,000.
$113,801. So if you can halve your fee, knowing there's no other changes,
you've got an extra
$113,000 at retirement.
And that's I think the point I think to leave it with today is that, so we know fees are confusing. We've discussed this. It's confusing to know what you.
And by the way, you can halve your fee because we know it funds it.
That's the other part. It's so the points that we've touched on today, and I think to reiterate it, we know that fees are confusing. We're not. If you don't know what you're getting charged now, it's not because you're inept. It's just that fees are very confusing, and generally, your fund has not really brought that to your attention. You don't know that that's something that you can shop around effectively. So, especially with the industry fund, where it's sort of implied that this is run for members, we're taking care of you, we're doing the best we can for you. That may be the case, but you still might be getting charged more than you should be. So. Fees are confusing.
Fees are confusing. The statements are confusing as well. So I'll just add to that. So basically, there's only a very small... for each of those funds I mentioned, it was either a $52 a year admin fee or a $78 a year admin fee, plus a small percentage. And then there were other fees, the investment fee and the internal cost ratio. They're not reported on the statement. So
just the admin fees.
It's the running cost of that investment strategy. It's just you'll only see the people tell me all the time, this fund only cost me $78 a year, and I said no. That's the
just the bit that's
explicit admin fee that's come out. So it's if you look through all of it, then it's these hidden fees that are in the
behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
So that's, I guess, point one is that fees are confusing. We know they're confusing. It is a tricky thing to get right. Number two is that you can pick up a fairly significant cost saving for most people. Now, separate to everything else that we talk about with our clients around investment strategy and other things that they should be doing and can be doing, just from a pure cost saving point of view, the average person in the average industry fund can pick up a fairly significant cost saving. They could almost halve their fees in a lot of cases. So, and the third point is that we know they're confusing. We know you can do that, but you're probably going, it all sounds too hard and it's a lot of work. The benefit over 15 years for that person is $113,000. That's the difference. So we know it's confusing. But we know that we can do something. We can reduce that cost, and we know that the benefit of that for most people is significantly greater than what they think it will be. That dollar figure, when you're talking about it's 0.46% versus 0.93, you're kind of going it's
it doesn't seem like
anything. But
even a fee saving in the first year of 2,230. You think. Okay, well, what's the scalability factor of that?
Yeah.
A fee saving of $2,323.50 to steal a term from a different industry, being the startup industry. Yeah. So the scalability factor of that is that over 15 years, you retire with an extra $113,000 by a saving of $2,323.50 in the first year.
And the other point that I was thinking about as we're discussing this, I don't really have much to add after this, but as you're reading out the name of funds, what is interesting to me about the industry fund thing is that by its nature, it tends to disproportionately affect government and semi-government employees. And those are the types of people that have normally gone into a career where, you leave school, you go and become a nurse, you be a nurse for 40 years. You don't necessarily. You've probably worked for the same employer for 40 years, and you've had the same super fund for almost that amount of time. You probably don't know that this is something that you can and should take control of, and so it's definitely understandable to go. I've been with Q Super for 30 years. My balance just sort of goes up, and I just don't think about it, and it all This is sort of what I think is that you're disproportionately affected those sorts of people, your nurses, your school teachers, your police, your ambulance, that sort of thing, where there's kind of an implied contract where you go and do that career not because it's fantastic money, but because you go it's a calling, it's something that you're passionate about. You go and do that. You work for sort of the same employer for the whole time, pretty much, and it's sort of implied that employer takes care of you, and that your super fund, who's been the same super fund for 30 years, takes care of you. So that's, I think, what for those people to think about is that you might have had the same super fund for 30 years, you might have had the same employee, you might have had a similar wage for the whole time that you've been working there. There are still significant things that you can do and levers that you can pull and things that you can take control of. It's not a matter of going, well, I'm with these guys, I've been working for Queensland Health for 30 years or whatever the New South Wales equivalent is, and I've been with QSIP for 30 years, so it's just going to be what it's going to be. You can do things behind the scenes to make a really big impact to your retirement savings.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and it's not even necessarily having to get out of that fund.
No, it's like
there's different investment options, lower cost investment options most of the time.
Yes,
internally in each one of those funds,
and that's, I guess, as you say, we'll touch on a future podcast around. Not only is there a cost saving, but there's potentially an increased return over the long term as well. So, definitely worth looking at.
Thanks for listening. That was quite interesting to do that one.
Yeah,
and
I'm glad it was you and not me. That would have been pretty painful to go through the implied costs and the explicit costs and this sort of cost, and we'll tack on $1 fee here, and it's very confusing. Maybe only we think it's interesting. We might get feedback from people going, that was the worst podcast you guys have ever done, but we'll soon see. I hope you guys got something out of it.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.